Thank you for the opportunity to submit to the Term of Parliament Amendment Bill. Whilst Waikato District Council is supportive of the 4-year parliamentary term, we are concerned the bill is making a 4-year parliamentary term conditional rather than mandatory. The risk is that should a government choose not to have the required select committee representation checks and balances in place, the parliamentary term may revert to 3 years. This will create inconsistencies that will not be good for lawmaking, but also render central government term uncoordinated with that of local government. Secondly, the Waikato District Council therefore recommends that the 4-year parliamentary term is not conditional but mandatory, with the required non-executive members of Parliament representation on select committees always in place. Doing this will enable a more effective, bipartisan and robust approach to lawmaking on a consistent basis. A 4-year term will help provide greater stability in political cycles and enable a longer focus on policy delivery as opposed to a 3-year term. To address a scenario where the term of central government and that of local government is out of sync with regards to central government lawmaking and relevant implications for local government, we recommend that the Justice Committee consider initiating an amendment to the Local Electoral Act 2001 to change the term of every local authority from 3 years to 4 years, and that the local body start elections to be held 1 year after the general elections, as this would enable local authorities to start responding to central government key policy settings the year after, as has been developed, and make more synchronicity between lawmaking and policy implementation. Thank you. That's our talking points.
Hey, thank you very much. I've got Ms. Celia Wade-Brown.
Kia ora, thank you very much, Mayor Church, for submitting. Always still interested in local government. It's interesting, given the inquiry into voting methods that Mayor Smith has been leading, talking about whether the Electoral Commission runs both national and local elections. So far, the suggestions have been for, I guess, almost personnel management reasons to have them 2 years apart if we all went to 4 years. But yours is a very interesting idea that it should be the year after. Would you apply that even if we stuck to the 3-year terms? Would you want to tie the two elections together a little more closely? And what happens if Parliament collapses?
So, good question. To follow central government a year or two, but we've considered a year because we think that we've got the agility to respond. But to try and to think where a government may go and change the policy retrospectively, particularly as we're doing our long-term plan, which is done every 3 years, even though we review it every year, it's very complicated and difficult and also confusing for all the reasons as well as expensive. So to follow would be much better. We don't think we need 2 years, because actually what we do want in the centre of this is as local government goes into their jobs, and also they have elections at the other end in their minds, and maybe not on business as usual as much, same as what central government has the same bedding in and then elections coming up. The more time we have in the centre, of the middle of that time for those time frames together to work in partnership is better. So 1 year would be better, because otherwise the time frames are then skewed to less job time that we actually get the market done. And as you say, one rolls over all these issues, we can actually work together as partners and strengthen that relationship for that sustainability for our nation and democracy.
Thank you. And now we've got Mr. Bates.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks very much, Mayor, for your submission on behalf of the District Council. Just interested in the process you went through as a District Council to come to this view. Was it just a discussion around council table? Was there any polling or direct engagement with your ratepayers?
No, we didn't go out in our ratepayers. What we personally find, and I as a mayor, and I will speak on my personal opinion, but my perception is a lot of the information and that are coming out of central government is very, very short timelines. But in my experience over the last 12 years in local government and 9 years as a councillor and 3 as a mayor, nearly, is that, and also talking to colleagues and community boards, is we're all quite frustrated of the short timelines, but particularly that the partnership opportunities of having a bit more light time frame, of working together in partnership with central government and their policies to be able to follow them and support those bigger goals together, and the short timelines hamper that out. But we do agree, in my opinion as well, and I see that from other submitters, that democracy has to have those checks and balances in place to be healthy and robust. So it's not just about the time frame. You know, other countries have gone from differences of time term. It doesn't mean it works better. It is around the constitutional robustness that goes around that is where I think that the thinking has to be equally added to. But we didn't go for a poll. We didn't have time.
Your Worship, just a practical question. Maybe you can just help the committee. If you had the local government on a different cycle, a 3-year cycle, and we have central government at maybe 4 or 3 under the current proposal, ultimately you might get up to this point where you're actually coinciding on the same year, which would be an interesting proposition. But from a practical perspective for planning, which is what one of your submissions were about, how would that issue about getting out of sync with government affect your planning in a practical sense?
Chair.
Really good question. Quite frankly, we are at a sync, I believe, all the time, and that we can actually move to improve these things. For example, our council has a 1 year, 3 year LTP, 10 year LTP budget rolling over. We have a 30-year infrastructure strategy, and we have a 50-year growth strategy for where we're going, what we're doing for our people, like most councils. What I don't see is those strategies for political parties nor for central government as a whole, or bipartisan agreement of that. So we actually pivot all the time to changes of policy and directions of government to the best we can. We're used to that. That's what makes us robust and healthy. What we think is a longer term will give us opportunity opportunity to segue those partnerships in a stronger way, using the acumen for both bipartisan and partnership with ourselves and others for the greater good, in line with the process of the government of the time.
Thank you. Last question from Mr. Bates again.
Thanks very much. And just going back to that, so I appreciate the views you expressed. I just want to understand, though, regarding a 3-year versus 4-year term. If a 3-year term, if a government's doing well, if there is that relationship with local government, surely they would get re-elected for a following on term. And if they've been a bad government and run for 4 years, take, for example, the last government, the mess to clean up would be significantly more, and you'd have a lot more coming at you from central government.
I'm not going to make a political statement, and I think in the environment of a nation and a world that's post-COVID, where people in my community liken it to be post-war, because it's the ramifications of economics, good and bad are relative to people's aspirations and viewpoints. What I would say is the local government wishes to partner up better. We think that we have a longer time in the centre of the bedding in to our jobs and the elections at the other ends to work together collaboratively with these plans and directions and follow and support and enhance the policy directions of the government at the time as we were at, and 4 years would be better. However, to underline that, it does need the checks and balances, because time is not the only thing. It is about but we definitely follow is important, but we actually need the other pieces of the Constitution to make sure that that's robust.
All right. Thank you, Your Worship. Very helpful submission.
Thank
All right,
you.
we're going
Your comments.
I don't have any for that one.
It's interesting the bit that's been mentioned about how long-term plans can get screwed completely up by a changing government. I mean, that was a good example of what happened with the change from Labour to National was free waters. So a lot of long-term plans were heading in the direction of putting free waters in, and then suddenly you had this expense put in, because when they repealed free waters, they didn't have the replacement plan. So in the meantime, the council had to factor in with very high rates increases to factor in that, because local water done well hadn't actually been put into legislation yet, but the free waters was already taken out.
Yeah, it reminds me of budget day conversations.
Oh god, that was like half a week ago.
Yeah, because all of those cuts and slashes and blame the previous government because they were doing it wrong undoes progress, and we never get ahead.
Yeah.
So is it 3 steps forward, 2 steps backwards every term, or is it worse?
Oh, I don't know. Depends who you speak to.
Because I remember when we were doing the local body elections a few years ago, I was on tech side, but I still struggled to follow the conversation about the 3 waters.
There was a lot of confusion over how free waters worked, and I think that didn't help because it was poorly explained.
Yeah, it sounds like it would align with my values.
Yeah, it was poorly explained, so then people actually didn't know about it. So it's like, we don't want rates increases, but we don't want free waters. We want the outcome of free waters, but we don't want free waters. And that's literally what happened.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to describe it, is we literally ended up with, we don't want A, but we want the benefits of A. But we want B, but we don't want to pay for the cost of it, but we don't want the rates to go up.
And it's coming up to crunch and crisis time where we need the results of either. So let's go.
Yeah.
Upper Hutt's very good counsel, eh?
Yeah, well, who knows what's going to be the big hot topic issue this local body elections apart from the Māori wards referendum. Okay, next up is Luke Mitchell.
Now we've got Luke, haven't we? Luke Mitchell? Yes. Right, okay. Thank